Hello. In this video, we're going to be talking about self-love. This is going to be a complete video on the fine art, the practice of loving yourself. The first thing I would like to explain is, what is the self? Can it be known? And what does it mean to love yourself? Does it mean to pat yourself on the back? Well, to understand who you are, I don't want to explain to you in mystical terms. So in other words, I don't want to tell you that you are a soul, or you're like a spirit or a mind that's separate from the body or independent of the body that you're using. Though that is, in my opinion, the case. I still would like to get you to appreciate and accept the potential that you are not just the body, at least for the sake of this video. Since you were born, you have been developing. I mean, this is a fact. When you were little, you probably weren't as experienced as you are now. Isn't that true? You've had more experiences. Some experiences, maybe, God forbid, or however the term is, maybe you got injured or something, broken arm or something. That's not a situation of lack of progress. You see, everything that we experience grows us. Not only our physical body changes, for example, maybe you get acne as you get older, or maybe, like I said, you break an arm or you get taller. Whatever happens to you, that's what happens, and you physically progress. So that's the physical aspect of you changing. Our cells, they die and reproduce. Our cells, they die and reproduce until we get old, and that stops, or something kills us naturally. But we also grow internally, you could say, psychologically. If you're more spiritual, you would say that we grow on a soul level, spiritual development. Now, I am a thorough believer in spiritual development. The aura, the feeling people get about your vibe, your wisdom, your sense of intuition, and everything kind of develops. Now, what does evolution mean? Evolution, by definition, is gradual development to a more advanced state. This is truly what happens as we progress in life. In this one lifetime that you've been experiencing, you have maybe gained some friends and lost some friends. Maybe you have changed. Maybe your senses have dulled out. Maybe things used to be bright and vivid. Now they're more dull and things aren't so exciting. Maybe you've become jaded. Maybe when you were a kid, you had these interests. Now you have these interests. Maybe before you didn't know much about mathematics, and now you're a math expert. Who knows? I don't know your life. I'm just saying some examples. So you've gotten wiser. You've gotten more experience. In other words, you've gotten more developed. Now, you have been developing over many years, not just the years of this lifetime, but also the lifetimes that have passed, if you've had them. Give or take, you've probably had many lifetimes. I don't know exactly how many you've had, but you've definitely had some. According to my spiritual research and beliefs, we've all had much more experiences than just the birth of this particular lifetime. So that's who you are. That's who you are. You are this creature, this soul, or just this being, if you don't want to get too spiritual about it, that has been developing and becoming more experienced. Your experiences mold you. They change your aura. They change the look in your eyes. They change everything that you become. Now, there are some things that don't change. We don't have to get into all that, but all the stuff that you could possibly be worried about if you don't like about yourself, you can change with time as you develop. In fact, all that you have become is through your experiences and your actions. Those are the two things that formed your personality, your desires, your way of viewing the world. It's been your own personal actions, and it's been the experiences that you have had. Some experiences have been tough, very painful. Some experiences may have been very pleasant and easy. Some experiences you feel like, I'm just stuck in life. What? Life is paused, everyone's out there doing stuff, and I'm just over here by myself. Even when you feel like you're not developing, as long as you're experiencing something, that something that you're experiencing, your soul must believe it. It's experiencing it too. And that which your soul is experiencing, it's growing from. In other words, every experience is food for your soul. So how does self-love play into this? Is it possible to consciously and on an awareness level just start to love yourself even if even if there is some sort of resistance? Here's the thing about that. Spiritual resistance is sometimes nothing more than a lack of self-knowledge. We're talking about self-love. Let's define that. We already defined who you are. Now let's define what self-love actually is. Self-love is the acceptance, embracing, and deriving of pleasure from the realization that you are the only one of you that exists, and that you can change yourself into something better, and that you are exactly what you have become through the experiences you have went through. In other words, God has not cheated you in any way. It would be really messed up if you went through hard times, but those hard times didn't grow you in some way, shape, or form on a spiritual level, wouldn't it? It would be very messed up if your pleasures, pleasant experiences, and difficult times, they just went out the window and that's it. But trust me, all those experiences in some way, they are serving you on a spiritual level. Everything gets recorded on a spiritual level. All of our actions, all of our experiences, since the world was created, this was the design that the Creator had. That everything would be recorded. I mean, can't you prove it to yourself that even your own memories in your own mind are proof of that? I mean, something happened maybe 5 years ago and you remember it still vaguely or very vividly, and you can remember that. Isn't that interesting how that moment is gone, but you can somehow remember it? That's called a spiritual thing. You're channeling a spiritual energy. So self-love starts with realizing that if you don't like yourself now, you can change. You can change a lot of what you are. You can't change maybe your your limitations, but you can there is no energy signature that's set in stone. Millions of years down the line, you will be a completely different feeling and looking being. And what you are now, let's say there was hypothetically 1,000,000 years before this moment, you would have been way different back then than what you have become now. We can mess up in life, we can screw up, we can make mistakes and sin and be evil and hurt ourselves or hurt others. But all that is growing us. Now, I don't know if animals grow, but certainly as people we do. So you understand now that yes, if you don't like what you are, you're going to change into something else. And what's going to make you into what you're going to become is your own actions and your experiences. And this will kind of form and shape and develop you and grow you into the more advanced being that you're becoming. And again, the home of this growth is in your soul. Self-love, to me, says that I can change, but I have to realize something. And I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. That I became exactly what I have went through. God didn't cheat me. My actions contributed to what I became, and my experiences did. And if I find it hard to love myself, that's only because I don't know all of myself. Now there is this, you can't lose yourself altogether, but you can lose your sense of self. It's almost like your self is a sense of its own, like seeing or hearing. But you have this sixth sense, you could say, of yourself. And who am I? What do I like? What do I dislike? What is my personality like? How do I be true to myself? And your sense of self is something you have to channel and work towards. Now, it is possible that you lose your sense of self. And this is very common nowadays with all the social media stuff going on and fake news, it seems, and a lot of the stress of modern day reality where everybody is kind of informed with how they should be living. And how can you love something that you don't know? I mean, is it possible to know where something is if you don't see it? Not really. Is it possible to touch something that doesn't exist? No. Therefore, if you find it hard to derive pleasure out of the acceptance of all that you have organically and truthfully become, then that's only because you have a bit of a soul loss situation. You kind of have a sense of self loss there. So the first step would be to, past all the mental stuff, like accepting that you can change and remember yourself, it would be starting to get to know yourself more. How do you get to know yourself more? Well, this is the practice of self-love that we're talking about here, and like I said, you have to know yourself in order to love yourself. And if you know yourself as you really are, you cannot hate yourself. This is the secret that I was leading up to this video to. That even if you were the worst, most unethical person in the world, you will still be able to love yourself. Because you're so selfishly in love with yourself already, which is totally healthy and natural, that nothing can stop you from truly loving yourself. You just need to remember that you love yourself. You have an ability to lose touch of yourself, like you lost your vision for yourself, and you're trying to look for yourself, you're trying to feel who you are. I find it hard to love myself, I hate who I've become, blah blah blah. That's all legitimate, but if you find it hard to love yourself, you need to start remembering yourself. Now, how do you do that? You have to start contemplating. Start doing contemplation work. Contemplate on the day that you lived. How did you feel that day? On days that were big and made some major changes in your being and your perception of the world, such as even if it was 15 years ago. Think about, how did I feel that day? How did those experiences relate to me? Perhaps you have some misconceptions about your past even. I mean, it's possible that you think that you were very in tune with yourself a long time ago, and you kind of went off the rails and untuned from yourself, and now you're looking for yourself again. But it's possible that this is the more real you and more in tune you. You've become more in tune, and before you were just out of your mind. And the out of the mind thing is a slow transition out of it into the you of now. So contemplation work, shadow work. Shadow work is looking into your mind and seeing what irks you, seeing what are your weaknesses, what are your flaws. You know, some people are very, not really quick to get angry, but they're very mean. They're willing to be mean. Some people are very bold to be mean. Some people are, I don't know, lots of different flaws people can have. And you're looking, when you're doing shadow work, you're looking for your weaknesses, your flaws, but you're also looking for, you're doing introspection work. You're discovering what you are. So I would say every day sit with yourself, whether it's, you know, during watching YouTube videos in leisure time, or if it's like during listening to music when you're laying down on the bed. You can still use some of that attention to kind of do some inner work. Trust me, it heals. Those people who are always involved in their, like, what's before them, like reading a book or doing work or something like that, those people, in my opinion, are leading themselves down a very scary path, because the mind has the capability and desire to do inner work. It's like willingly putting some energy towards undoing damage or unwinding wounds or processing trauma. So loving yourself is knowing yourself. Because if you knew that you have become exactly what your experience have made you into, you cannot be angry at yourself. You cannot feel upset at yourself. You can probably be upset at others if they hurt you, or angry at them, but you can't be angry at what you've become. You can't be upset at yourself. If you'll find yourself being angry at yourself or not liking yourself at all, or you hate yourself, something like that, I would argue that that's a delusion. And I would argue that what it is that you have become is much more, you're much more pleased with that, or at least comfortable with it, than you give yourself current credit for. In other words, there's a separation, there's some distance between what you truly are and what you see of yourself. Once you see who it is that you really are, you will immediately love yourself. So staying close to yourself in knowledge, here is you, here is your knowledge, having some nearness to that, to yourself in terms of how you understand what you are, is the first and big key towards self-love. Self-love is knowing yourself. That's the first step. The second step, I don't know how many steps we've covered actually. I've covered quite a few. So forget the steps thing. I'll summarize it all here pretty soon in the next 20-25 minutes. So knowing yourself, realizing that you can change all of you, your outer world, in terms of your aura, your inner personality, your inner feelings. You are your body, you are your emotions, you are your mind, you are your imagination, you're everything that you can possibly control, right? You are your actions, but you're not really all of your experiences, but your experiences have molded you into what you are now. In other words, it's kind of interesting. It's like you are like a painting that the world is painting on, but The painting that you are becoming, you have an influence on it too through your own actions. You are a depiction, you are a piece of art that shows you your life history. And thankfully we do change and evolve. Okay. So loving yourself is knowing yourself, realizing that you can change if you don't like yourself. What else is there to self-love? It's taking pleasure in what it is that you have become. You're this eternal, beautiful being that you have not lost yourself at all. You can only lose your sense of self. You can't really lose yourself. You are yourself. You don't ever lose yourself. You know, a blind person still has eyeballs. It's just they're not working properly. And you are the same way with your soul. So start contemplating. Once you get to know yourself, it's like, wow, I like this about myself. I like that I am tall. Or I like that I'm short. Or I like that I look this way. Or I like that I was kind on that day to that person. I like that I was simple. I like that I was authentic. Part of self-love is refraining from doing self-harm. And self-harm is not just cutting yourself or hurting yourself on a physical level. Sometimes self-harm is throwing yourself into a tough situation, socially or financially, doing something to screw yourself over. That's to get anger out on yourself, which can't really be of benefit to you. Because self-harm, by definition, it harms you. It hurts you. If it's physical, it hurts you. It ruins you physically. But even if it's like a psychological or mental self-harm, that too is it. So part of self-love is to not do self-harm. Physically, emotionally, financially, psychologically, mentally, spiritually. People who love themselves, they don't throw themselves into danger. They don't find themselves in places and activities and positions in reality that are somehow indirectly or directly harming their peace of mind. If you want to love yourself, you have to clean up your life. This includes, are all the people in your life positively influencing you? All the activities in your life, are they actually something you enjoy doing? Now, everything will grow you. Remember, in life, the aim of the soul is to develop and gradually become something more advanced. So you can't really lose that in life. There's no such thing as losing. Remember, they say those kinds of interesting quotes like, "We learn from our failures," or "A loss is even still a win." That's what it is. Even a loss is a win because you grew from it. And in life is its own gift. You can only benefit from life. You can't get any really loss from life. How can you lose in life when life is its own gift? And everything benefits you. Everything's here to benefit you. God did not make a world for us to be tortured in hell. But even being tortured in hell would grow your soul. Because it would make you more wise, sharpen you, make you more well-rounded, or in other ways, more spiritually improved. It can make you more humble. So I'm not saying that all tough experiences are necessary to cut out, but I am saying that if you feel like something you'd prefer not to have it in your life, if it's not benefiting you enough to your liking, then you can do that. So life is a balance of, I guess, pleasure and pain. Improving yourself spiritually or just taking it easy. And you, as a free soul who loves yourself or tries to love yourself with self-love, you will have to make the right decisions. So let's summarize what it is that we have talked about so far. Self-love is the acceptance of and taking pleasure in who it is that you have become, who it is that you are. You can change if you don't like yourself, and all of your experiences are there to benefit you. And you should be taking pleasure. Now, this final section of this video, let's call it the last 18 minutes of this video. It will be on actually taking pleasure. One of the best feelings is actually the feeling of excitement and giddiness of your own being. A lot of people say that you need others in order to feel happy. You need people around you, other people around you, in order to lift yourself up. But there's another group of people that say that if you are alone and you don't feel good and you need somebody there, perhaps you're not in good company. That's a good yardstick to measure yourself by. If you are not comfortable or unhappy or uncontent even being on your own, then what are you providing to others but neediness? People don't want to be around people who are needy. People aren't there to complete each other. People are here to enjoy alongside each other what each one has to provide for them. So if you feel like you're not good enough to be in a relationship or good enough to have friends, it might be true. It might be a little bit of spiritual work that you need to put in to become more of what it is you would like to be like, whether that's more humble, more attentive to what others say, more in tune with your own interests, or just more funny or more personable. There is truly a lot of pleasure to get out of yourself. I mean, sometimes, me personally, I even feel bored with myself or not interested or not necessarily unhappy with myself, because I realize that everything that I am, God never cheated me out of anything. I've become who I am from all of my actual experiences. But there's times when I'm alone and I get happy, just thinking about myself and my ability to become something even better than I am now. That's cool though. I enjoy the feeling of giddiness. So some of the feelings that you might get from like being interested in yourself are those dopamine rushes. Wow, I like how, even though I think I have mistakes in the past and regrets, I like how I acted still in this situation in this noble way. In other words, you're locating, though you may have regrets, you think, and mistakes and sins, you still are able to see some positivity. At the very least, and this is true for everybody, you've made it this far. Even if you're the most unrighteous and immoral person in the world, you've made it this far. You've survived this far. You've breathed in a lot of air and exhaled a lot of air out of your lungs. That's something to take pride in and take some, get some joy out of, if nothing else. You can feel excited like dopamine rushes when you realize that I like myself. Because at the end of the day, who do you even have except for yourself? There's nobody else that you have as much as you have yourself. There's no person out there, there's no friend, there's no family, there's no pet. I'm a pet keeper. I have 2 lizards and a tortoise. And a shrimp. Even I know And I've had friends and things like that before. Even I know that at the end, you are your best friend. You are the one that you have to live with. And since you are the one that you have to live with, who else can there possibly be other than maybe God, divinity, that was with you all along? Who else do you have that was with you all along? This is why it's so important to love yourself. How many times do we seek fulfillment or contentment or filling the holes inside of ourselves, spiritual ones, in other beings, when really it is ourselves and our self-worth and our self-esteem and self-liking that's lacking. That's really the essence of everything. It's the greatest teaching in the world, self-love. I mean, what are all of the religions teaching? Moral treatment towards others, so you can love yourself and not hate yourself for what you've done, and therefore for what you've become. That's what all the religions are teaching. Treat others well so that you can like yourself. I mean, what are things like guilt and shame and feeling like you let yourself down? That's all legitimate. There's a lot of people in this world, maybe you're one of them, that feels like you've done wrong to yourself. You hurt yourself through hurting others. Therefore, that's why I say that that's the teaching of all the religions. Aside from all the spiritual things like reincarnation or things like that, various gods or certain practices. It comes back to you. It comes back to you and what you're becoming, what you've become, and are you happy with yourself, with what you have done, with how you've influenced the world, with how you've affected yourself, with what you've become? Are you? If I was to ask you right now, are you happy with what you've done to those around you? Have you hurt anybody who didn't need it? Have you helped people? Have you been a difficult force on others? Or have you been a beneficial force or a no force at all almost on people who needed you to help them? Really, you're the center of your world, and anybody who says to you that you're not the center of your own world is probably kind of lying to you. Anybody who tells you you're not the center of the world, how can you say that to somebody if, yeah, they're not the center of the world, but they're certainly the center of their own world? So if you're telling somebody you're not the center of the world, at least make sure that they know what it is you're saying to them. Because the person saying that still has themselves in the center of their world. So self-love. In conclusion, let's wrap this video up over these next 10 minutes, because I want to make this video about 45 minutes long. Self-love will have you feeling good, and it's a continual process of self-improvement. Self-love is self-knowledge mixed with self-improvement, mixed with self-acceptance. Those are the three keys. Acceptance of who you have become, knowledge of who it is that you have become, and the ability and willingness to improve who it is that you've become, even if you're the greatest. Yeah, there can only be one greatest. Even if you're not the greatest, you can still improve yourself. And of course, self-love means not hurting yourself, not throwing yourself into tough situations, and not ruining your own life. It's the embracing of your freedom and having at least enough integrity to, if you don't want to love others, at least to love your own self. Every one of us has flaws. Every one of us has likely made mistakes. Every one of us has done things towards ourselves and towards others that we think we regret. Now, I don't believe in regret. I don't believe that what is over with, the soul can possibly dwell on. You can not like what you've become or what you're becoming, but you can definitely not dislike something that's over with. Your soul is in the now and looking towards the future. The past haunts it, but your soul has no business or benefit from digging in your past, trying to change something that's already happened. Now, there's certainly, like I said, room for shadow work and contemplation and introspection to help you process your trauma. I've been doing introspection for a long time. I've been processing and going in my own mind and trying to figure things out and seeing how I've been keeping a mental diary for a long time of how I've been changing and growing as a person. I can say that I'm a far different person now than I was when I was maybe 10 years old. Right now I'm 23 years old. When I was like 10 years old, my interest in worldview was way smaller and was way different. And I was arguably a lot more distanced from myself than a lot of other people. And I've slowly been coming in and centering myself. And even I can admit that this thing of evolution of the soul is real. What is the soul, though? It's like this promise from God that individual you will not die off. You live in the memory of God, who is eternal. So just because you're in this body now doesn't mean that you didn't exist prior to this body. After this body dies, you're still going to exist. Some part of you, everything is within the mind of God, you're still going to exist. Just make sure that you're developing in the direction that you want to go in. So, honestly, for the next 7 minutes, let's really do some true, honest wrapping up of everything that we have covered. Let me think about here for a brief second what it is that I can put into a nice little package. What can you finally take away from this video? If it would just be one small thought, one thing to remember. If I was to say the one thing that I would have you take away from this video, it would be that it wouldn't be accept yourself as who you are. It wouldn't even be that you maybe forgot yourself and that's why you don't love yourself. It would be that everything that you are, you can change. So maybe a lot of what you have a hard distance of loving yourself is not just that you don't know yourself. It's because you think that you're stuck in the way that you are. Remember what I said, every experience, even if the feeling is like totally no feelings at all, the feeling of emotionlessness, even that feeling of not feeling anything inside will grow you into something more better and more beautiful. Don't hurt yourself. Don't put yourself into situations that are not beneficial to your own growth. Take some time to help yourself live a pleasant life, but don't be totally against self-improvement either. I mean, can there possibly be any improvement of the soul without at least a little bit of pressure along the way? Or at least a little bit of applied applied tension along the way. So God never cheated anybody out of their rights to grow into whatever they will. This has been the Self-Guide Complete, the Self-Love Complete video to show you all the aspects of yourself. Your body is changing, your mind, your soul, your aura. Know yourself, do contemplation work, stay true to yourself. At the end of the day, All the soul knows is to grow. What will you become? That's the question for this video. What will you become? What will others know you as? What will you know yourself as? Are you getting closer to yourself right now? Are you seeking yourself? Or are you losing yourself? Remember, because all good things, they're eternal. Some good things are not eternal, they're fleeting, they're temporary, but all the truly very important things in life are a continual process. They're a process of change. The eternal things change and the temporary things change. But the good stuff that really brings self-fulfillment and pleasure and that giddy feeling of like, wow, I like that I am myself. I have a being to work on and grow, like a gardener has a plant to grow. All that stuff is rooted in the acceptance of your own being and the fact that it can change. You are forever growing, forever changing. And for example, the practice of authenticity, which is the practice of being true to yourself in your daily life and your actions and your activities, doing what you like, stuff like that. That's something that you need to keep up on, right? That's something that isn't just a one-time thing. It's like, okay, I looked at myself, I like basketball today. Well, if that's how it is, then let's say 30 years down the line when you can't stand the look of a basketball, clearly you evolved, you changed. Maybe now you want baseball, maybe now you want to read books. Therefore, it's a continual keeping up on thing. You constantly have to be keeping up on authenticity and the practice of self-love. It's okay to love yourself. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to live a lifestyle that is pleasing to you. At the end of the day, nobody is more responsible for yourself than you. At the end of the day, you are the one that you have to go to sleep with every night, and you're the one that you have to deal with every living moment. It's truly insane to not seek the truth and to seek falsehood or to run away from your problems, because that's not facing your problems. That is, on the contrary, running away from your problems. And running away from one's own problems seems to be not the brightest idea. Because problems, by their nature, they're there to haunt you and grow you even more. That's what problems do. They are mistakes that you've made that force you to feel a little bit of pain to shape you into something even more sharpened and well-rounded and beautiful and better in the long run. Well, if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button. I make lots of different spiritual videos. This one happened to be about self-love. This video was the complete guide to loving yourself. I hope it's been of benefit to you. I touched on a lot of different topics. And I'm very happy with what I've done with this video. Thank you for watching.